It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
Erica on YouTube asks, I've seen people set up their retirement funds to not include any bond investments so they can be as aggressive as possible. Do you agree with this strategy? Is this dependent on one's risk tolerance?
Reeby's giving us some dimes today.
Yeah, these are good. And I love that
try.
they're on brand with the whole 401k decision making too. So Erica, this is a great question. I will tell you, this is, and I'm giving, because I can't help, I think our superpower, Bo, is that we do think logistically or decision making wise, what's the best incremental decision for the next dollar that you have. And I think we're going to get into the weeds on this one. The first decision, there's a reason we always do index target retirement funds, is because in the beginning, when you're on your wealth building journey, more wealth is built from your savings and investing behavior than getting into the weeds of how do I maximize the asset allocation or tax location, because that's what this is getting into, is because, look, initially when you're young, you're going to have the majority of your assets, the lion's share is going to be in growth-oriented assets. It's not until you get a few decades older from when you start the journey that you start worrying about spreading out the diversification. And it is one of those things, especially for people once they've graduated beyond index target retirement funds, we like to become very strategic. This is part of step 7 of the financial order of operations, the hyperaccumulation phase, where Bo always loves to talk about his tax buckets. You've got your after-tax, which is like your joint or individual savings and investment accounts. You've got your tax-deferred, which are your traditional 401k, and those type of your employer match money, even if you're doing the Roth option within your 401k. And then you've got your tax-free, which your Roth IRAs, your health savings accounts, as well as your Roth 401k or 403b options. And Erica, you're trying to figure out, should I have bonds? We like, when you're in the wealth building journey, getting back to step 7 of the financial order of operations, that once you've graduated beyond tax, the basics of these target retirement funds, we do like, because what's the problem with bonds is that unless they're municipal bonds, they typically are government obligations. They're taxed at ordinary income tax rates, which are the highest. And we're always hoping there's this arbitrage situation that when you retire, once you quit working, hopefully your tax rate, your ordinary income tax rate's going to go way down versus when you're earning your peak earning years in your 40s and 50s. And the problem, so to take advantage of that, it's not uncommon that we try to put the fixed income in an asset type that's going to be taxed at ordinary income anyway, because the goal is you put it in there, let it grow at ordinary income rates, so that when you pull it out, and you have to pull it out at ordinary income on the traditional IRA or traditional 401k, you're hopefully at a much lower tax rate than you were while you were working.
Yeah, I love that, Brian. I think early on, the question you have to answer is, what are the things that I should be focused on, right? Like, is asset allocation something that should demand a lot of my attention? When I talk to somebody about opening their first Roth IRA, and I tell them, hey, just start building, start saving $20 a month or $50 a month or maybe $500 a month. I don't want them thinking about asset allocation. I want them thinking about savings. I want them to think about contributing. I want them to think about staying consistent. Target retirement index funds are a fantastic way to do that. But then something that does happen is your portfolio does cross a critical mass. And I am of the opinion, I'm going to share some opinions here, Brian, so feel free to just kind of smack me and correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't care how much my portfolio makes this year. And I don't care how much my portfolio loses next year. What I care about is over the long term of my saving and investing career, I want to have a really healthy long-term rate of return where I am consistently growing my dollars through time. Well, in our opinion, one of the best ways to do that is through diversification, right? The way we diversify most often is we think about risk-on assets and some version of risk-off or risk-reduced type assets. Well, when people start asking this bond question, they're just asking the question, well, is bonds the best way? Are they the best way to do the risk off or risk reduced? And I'll admit it's a little unique right now, right? Interest rates are down. It seems like they're going up. So if you are going to invest in fixed income securities or you are going to use bonds in your portfolio, you have to think about it a little bit different. You have to think about what are the types of things I should do given this unique environment. Just because the environment is different and the environment changes does not mean that the idea of diversification and spreading out your assets, spreading out your risk over the long term, doesn't make sense. Do bonds make sense in your unique and specific situation? It's really, really difficult to know. And if I were going to have this conversation with you, I'd want to know a whole lot more about your portfolio, what you have going on, how much you're saving, what types of accounts that you have. And if you're not at that critical mass where the portfolio, where it makes sense to start thinking about those things, I would argue just keep it simple. Focus on the things that really matter and have a huge impact in your portfolio, and wait until you get over that critical mass to start thinking about the other types of things, the other types of issues.
I find it interesting, as we all know, things change. The financial world changes so fast, and we have to be careful because this content will be up 2 years in the future. And everybody right now doesn't like bonds. And it's understandable because we all know, as interest rates go up, which the government is trying to fight inflation, so they're raising interest rates, the principal value of your existing bonds goes down. So it's easy to see when the Federal Reserve is saying, hey, we're going to raise rates another 50 to 75 basis points next month. Get ready for it. It's easy to see that, okay, that probably means bonds are going to be under pressure. But remember, this is why what Bo said about focus on the long term. What's going to happen when bonds, because the 10-year Treasury is already over 3%, when bonds are paying 6%? I mean,
it's a different environment.
It's a completely different environment, and I think a lot of people, and that's why I want to make sure that I always ground this, is that this will be timeless. And this is why our job's not going away. It's because we don't like market timing, but I do think you have to pay attention to what are the dynamics that are going on in the financial world, and does your plan take that into account? And that's a key part. So somebody watching this, if you're getting close to retirement, that's why I know we'll never be out of a job, is because you're going to want somebody who can navigate all those dynamic things in this fast-moving world.
I'll take it a step further. If you're someone out there wringing your hands over this question, how do I allocate a portfolio? How do I think about managing my money given this unique... That's a great indication that perhaps it's a good time to take the relationship to the next level. More than happy to talk with you. Reach out, moneyguy.com, aboundwealth.com. That's exactly one of the conversations you should be asking an advisor you meet with. Hey, how are you navigating this market? How are you thinking about managing a portfolio? What are the things you're looking at?
What about bonds?
And what about bonds? And they should be able to have a very concise and explicable explanation to help walk you through that.